Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Sarve Vedasya Yajnasya Tapodanani Chanaga Jiva Bhaya Pradhanasya Naku Viran Kalamapi. Sarve Vedas Cha Yajnascha Tapodanani Chanagha Jiva Bhaya Pradhanasya Nakurviran Kalamapi. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam 3.7.41, and we'll continue to read the next text as well, so that will complete the 7th chapter of the 3rd canto in the Srimad Bhagavatam that we've been reading. So the synonyms for this was Sarve, all kinds of, Veda, divisions of the Vedas, Cha, also, Yajna, sacrifices, Cha, also, Tapa, penances, Danani, charities, Cha, and Anaga, O spotless one, Jiva, the living entity, Abhaya, immunity from material pangs, Pradhanasya, of one who gives such assurance, Na, not, Kurviran, can he be equalized, Kalam, even partially, Api, certainly. Translation: O spotless one, your answers to all these questions will grant immunity from all material miseries. Such charity is greater than all Vedic charities, sacrifices, penances, etc. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The highest perfectional work of charity is to give people in general immunity from anxieties of material existence. This can be done only by performing activities in devotional service to the Lord. I'll read that again. This can be done by performing activities in devotional service to the Lord. Such knowledge is incomparable. Cultivation of the knowledge in the Vedas, performance of sacrifices, and distribution of munificent charities altogether cannot form even a part of the immunity from the pangs of material existence that is gained from devotional service. The charity of Maitreya not only will help Vidura, but due to the universal nature, will deliver all others in all times. Thus, Maitreya is immortal. Hare Krishna. And just moving on to the next text as well. Srimad Bhagavatam 3.7.42. Sri Shuka Uvacha. Sayitam aprishta purana kalpa Kuru pradhanena muni pradhanaha Pravritta Krishna Bhagavat Khatayam Sanchoditastam Prahasana Ivaha. I'm going to read this again. Sri Shuka Uvacha. Sayitam aprishta purana kalpa Kuru pradhanena muni pradhanaha Pravrta harsho bhagavat khatayam sanchoditastam prahasan ivaha. My apologies. I continue to have difficulties reading up close. Sign of good old age. So here, synonyms. Sri Shuka Uvacha. Sri Shukadev Goswami said, Saha, he, Ittam, does, Aparshta, being questioned, Purana Kalpaha, one who knows how to explain the supplements of the Vedas, the Puranas. Kuru Pradhanena, by the chief of the Kurus. Muni Pradhana, the chief amongst the sages. Pravradha, Pravradha, sufficiently enriched. Harsha, satisfaction. Bhagavat, the personality of Godhead. Khatayam, in the topics of Sanchodita, being so infused, Tam, unto Vidura, Prahasan, with smiles. Iva, like that? Aha, replied. Translation. Sri Shukadev Goswami said, thus, the chief of the sages, who is always enthusiastic about describing topics regarding the personality of Godhead, began to narrate the descriptive explanation of the Puranas, being so infused by Vidura. He was very much enlivened by speaking of the transcendental activities of the Lord. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jaya. Great learned sages like Maitreya Muni are always enthusiastic about describing the transcendental activities of the Lord. Maitreya Muni, being thus invited by Vidura to speak, appeared to be smiling because he actually felt transcendental bliss. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the third canto, 7th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Further Enquiries by Vidura. Om Ajnanatimarandasya Gnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you for joining us this Sunday morning. We are starting the new month, October 1st. It's exciting because this is a period in the year when there are such wonderful pastimes, wonderful events, wonderful festivities. We just completed Janmashtami. Yesterday was Bhadra Purnima, welcoming the Srimad Bhagavatam. And we're getting closer and closer towards the Kartik month. So this is all very auspicious. This is all very beautiful, blissful. And I wish you all, a very blissful few months ahead here. So I'm reading from, the last few verses of Canto 3, Chapter 7. And this actually will also provide us a segue into what I wanted to cover in terms of where we were, in terms of the last several weeks, where we were, covering favorite verses from the Srimad Bhagavatam, favorite to us personally, things, verses that have resonated with us over periods of time. And so I'd like to connect the two and, help us complete the last two verses and also the Canto 7 here, as well as, share with you a text or two which, have really resonated with me over the past so many years. So in Canto 3, Chapter 7, text 41 and 42, just to read the translations again so that it reminds us of what Vidura is describing and kind of encouraging Maitreya Muni to continue. So far, he's been asking these wonderful questions, and these questions are really thought-provoking. And they also bring to bear the supreme importance of the Supreme Personality of God. Godhead, Krishna, right? So in this, the translation is, "O spotless one, your answers to all these questions will grant immunity from all material miseries." That's an important one, right? He's not just asking questions. This is Vidura who is addressing Maitreya Muni. He's saying all these answers that you're going to give to the questions that I've asked you will grant immunity from all material miseries. It's not like Vidura is not aware of who Lord Sri Krishna is. But he's also asking with a sense of humility. He's also asking with a sense of being compassionate towards all living entities, especially the fallen ones, right, who are subject to such abject adversity in this material world. We are all, without exception, right, subject to these adversities and reversals in life time and time again. And so, what can we do to gain immunity from all such material miseries? And he says, such charity is greater than all Vedic charities, all Vedic charities, sacrifices, penances, etc. So, these are super valid questions that Vidura has been asking Maitreya Muni about how Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the cause of all causes, one that is completely spiritual, one that does not require anything from anybody, is completely satisfied in himself, right? And how is such a great personality performing pastimes in this material world, right? Krishna is responsible for this entire creation, and then he enters his own creation, and not only enters his own creation, but he's also untouched by the modes of material nature. So it's mind-boggling. It's inconceivable for any of us to think, through our material senses. How is it even possible? And that's why a lot of people even mistake Krishna to be a mythological or an ordinary person, for that matter. A great king, for that, maybe at most, but never thought of by a majority of the non-believers who think that Krishna is just an ordinary person. They cannot somehow come to terms to accept that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. He is the absolute truth. They're not able to come to terms with that. It is very difficult for them. Even great Vedantists, even great orators, and who can speak and quote from the Vedas and from the scriptures. What to speak of ordinary people where we're not able to completely understand Krishna, right? And so the Srimad Bhagavatam is shedding so much light, page after page, text after text. And the great acharyas in our lineage have been telling us and describing to us with so much conviction, with so much faith, and with so much taste, that it makes it easier, or I should say less difficult, for people like us to understand and relish and form the convictions that are absolutely grounded in the absolute truth, that Krishna is the supreme. When it's like mind-boggling pastimes. Mother Yashoda looking into the mouth of Krishna, looking for mud, but she didn't quite expect what she was going to see there. And she ends up seeing the entire creation. She sees the universes, the multitude of universes, the zillions and zillions of universes. And the best part is, she not only sees the universes in Krishna's mouth, but she also sees herself looking into Krishna's mouth, seeing the material creation. I mean, this is totally inconceivable. So we find it very, very, very difficult. So having been asked such beautiful questions, Maitreya Muni is also fired up at this point. It's this wonderful discussion between these exalted devotees of the Lord, right, which brings us also into that mode and into that mood of appreciating, these wonderful pastimes of Krishna, and just appreciating Krishna as a supreme personality. The supreme personality, Krishna, who can also be a little boy, he can be a little son, he can be a friend, he can be a devotee, and give us these wonderful pastimes where we're given that opportunity to relish and become a part of that transcendental pastime in a way where, being where we are, we can still get a glimpse into that beautiful spiritual world where we all should be. And it's basically, we're coming from there for whatever reason we are here. The idea, the notion is that we should focus on getting back. So the beauty of Srimad Bhagavatam is, to bring to light these beautiful pastimes. Obviously, there is so much out there in terms of what Krishna has done. I mean, that can go on lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, and we won't be able to cover all of that. But the Srimad Bhagavatam is that essence which is bringing all of that together, just for people like us to be able to, get that glimpse. And with that glimpse, be able to get that attraction for Krishna so that we can engage in devotional service. So here Vidura is exemplifying the great Maitreya Muni, but also stating the fact of all facts. And what is that? That devotional service is the highest perfection that can remove all material adversities for every living entity. And like I said, we are all subject to material anxieties without exception. Every single living entity in this material world. We are prey to the material anxieties, to Adidevika, Adibhautika, Adiatmika, so the modes of material nature are constantly acting on us. Right? There's danger at every step. Padam, padam, padam. So this is a good segue, in terms of what I'd like to cover as one of my favorite pastimes of Krishna as described in the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So I'm reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 80, that's 80, and text 19. Sakyupriyasya viprasir angasangati nirvataha prito vimunchad abhindun netrabhyam pushkarakshena. And I'm just reading it out to you. The lotus-eyed Supreme Lord felt intense ecstasy upon touching the body of his dear friend, the wise Brahmana, and thus he shed tears of love. Let me pull that up here so that you can also see it. Sorry, I went to the wrong one. Canto 10. See the number of chapters. This is mind-boggling in itself. I mean, one canto with so many chapters. It's just amazing, amazing, amazing. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Vyasadev ki jai. Srila Sukadev Goswami ki jai. Chapter 80. And here we're going to text 19. Sakyo priyasya viprasir angasangati nirvataha prito vamunchad abhindun netrabhyam pushkarekshanaha. Sakyu of his friend, priyasya, dear, viprashe, the sagacious Brahmana. The sagacious Brahmana meaning he's referring to Sukadev Goswami is referring to a very wise Brahmana here, wise in every respect, in terms of his speech, in terms of his thoughts, in terms of his preaching. Anga, of the body, sanga, by the contact, ati, extremely, nirvrataha, ecstatic, pritaha, affectionate, vyamanchat, he released, up of water, bindun, drops, netrabhyam, from his eyes, pushkarakshan, ikshanaha. Pushkara is lotus-eyed, ikshana is lotus-eyed. Pushkara, like lotus, lotus-eyed personality of Godhead. And the translation, the lotus-eyed Supreme Lord felt intense ecstasy upon touching the body of his dear friend, the wise Brahmana, and thus he shed tears of love. And here we're referring to Krishna shedding tears of love. Isn't that amazing? So there are many, many, many verses in the Srimad Bhagavatam and many sections in the Srimad Bhagavatam, many texts in the Srimad Bhagavatam that are absolutely nectarian, right? They can bring adventure, they can bring excitement to not just the young, but to the old alike and everyone in between. They can give you the highs, they can give you the lows, they can give you these pastimes which can bring tears to your eyes. Just the descriptions of those pastimes, the personalities, the devotees that are engaged and engaging with Krishna, they bring so much emotion into our hearts. But most importantly, all of these pastimes and all of these texts are related to Krishna, and therefore they are transcendental. And therefore, they also cannot be compared to anything material, right? When you're reading the Bhagavatam, you're automatically transported into that world. And for the most part, I would say, if you're paying attention and we're really reading with that eagerness, especially in the association with devotees, you completely forget about all the material anxieties that are, that we've been in or we're experiencing prior to, or, as a part of this real world. So I was finding it very hard to find a verse that was my most favorite. When we were asked to find that verse and speak about it, several weeks ago, I was looking for that verse or that section in the Srimad Bhagavatam that resonated deeply with me and that I could share with you all. And I'll admit, it was really, really hard. I mean, I fought with that for many, many, many days. And every time I thought I was getting closer and closer to finding the verse that I thought, okay, this is it, there would be another verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which was more interesting and more interesting and more interesting. And it was almost like, Krishna was egging me on to get more and more absorbed in reading the Srimad Bhagavatam. So every time I got closer, Krishna would drop another verse in front of me. And so, it went on and on. And so I found it hard. But then it was also a way I felt in retrospect, that Krishna was trying to bring this demoniac mind of mine back to where it should be, focused on the lotus feet of Krishna. So today I'd like to share a section of the Srimad Bhagavatam that has always struck me very deeply in my heart. I mean, this pastime for many, many years, ever since I was a child, when I first heard this, and it continues, no matter how many times I hear and read this about this pastime, it always strikes me in my heart. It resonates very deeply. So please allow me to share without further suspense this sweet, sweet, sweet pastime of Sudama and Krishna. So here's how it goes. I know you've heard this many times as well. Sudama was a very poor Brahmana. He was a teacher in this very poor village. It was a very simple village. And Sudama was very renounced in the way he led his life. He had a very sweet family. His wife, who was also very renounced, was very supportive. In spite of all the difficulties that they were going through from a material perspective, meaning, they had two beautiful children, young ones that they had to look after. They had to look after themselves. They had to look after their household. They had to look after their children. But they didn't have the material opulences or any kind of resources apart from whatever meager, um, you know, uh, food or groceries that they could get just by begging for alms. So while Sudama would spend his time completely detached from all of these material attachments, not that he did not care for his family, he loved his family very much, but at the same time, he was a very, very simple person. He felt like, whatever I need, Krishna provides. So why do I need to, spend any more extra effort in terms of worrying about all of these things? And so he was a simple teacher in that village. And he would talk about Krishna all the time. It was all about preaching about Krishna and the wonderful qualities of Krishna and his pastimes. And his wife went from house to house begging for alms. And with whatever little she would come back, they would have their meal for the day. So it was literally not just paycheck to paycheck in this case, it was going from day to day, from meal to meal. And there were times when the children wouldn't have enough. In fact, none of them would have enough to eat. And this went on, day after day, week after week, month after month. And the family was literally living in tatters. They had a very, very simple dwelling. It was a very small little hut that they were living with a thatched roof. The clothes that they were wearing were in tatters, right? They had many holes. It was, and they were living in poverty, but a very, very simple but contented life, until it got to a point where it became extremely difficult for them to put any food, for the parents to put any food on the table for the children. So at that point, when things became absolutely impossible and there was no light at the end of the tunnel for them, materially speaking, Sudama's wife, she kept telling him, requesting him, please, please go see your good friend Krishna. He is very opulent. He may be able to help you. Please go and ask him for some help. And she did this over time, and Sudama kept saying, no, I'm not going to do that. No, I'm not going to take advantage of my friend. Nope, I'm not going to do that. We will do what we have to do and manage. And this went on and on until it became intolerable. It became unbearable. The children didn't have food to eat. So at that point in time, Sudama's good wife, she implored, she said, I beg you, please go see your good friend Krishna. And then the thought came to Sudama's mind that, you know what? I'm actually getting an opportunity to go see my dear friend Krishna. So even then, he was not thinking about going to Krishna to ask for money or ask for this or ask for that. But instead, he was completely absorbed in the whole prospect of of seeing his dear friend Krishna after so many years, because Krishna and Sudama grew up together in Sandipani's ashram as students, as classmates, and then as friends and as best of friends. So he hadn't seen Krishna after he had left the ashram. They had grown up, they had all gone, their ways. Krishna was now the king of Dwaraka, Sudama was a teacher, right? And so they lost contact. There was no Facebook in those days, no WhatsApp, none of those things. So obviously they didn't really have, the opportunity to stay in touch. So Sudama was completely excited. He was excited about the whole prospect. Oh, I'm going to be meeting my dear friend after so many years. Will he remember me? How is he going to be? What is that interaction going to look like? What is that exchange going to look like? Oh, I'm so happy, to go see him. That was what was going through Sudama's mind. So he quickly turned around to his wife and he said, oh, okay, I will go see Krishna. Do we have any? I'm seeing him after a long time. Do we have anything that we can give him as a gift? And here they didn't have food to put on the table, not even for their own children. And they didn't even have proper clothes. What gift could they give in this empty hut, in this small little shack that they lived in? Now, Sudama's wife was very resourceful. And she said, don't worry about that. I'll figure something out. So she went out again and, begged from house to house and house. And she came back with 4 palmfuls of chipped rice. It wasn't even Sona Masuri or Basmati that's sitting in our pantries. She came back with 4, just 4, or small palmfuls of chipped rice. Because the village, even their neighbors were poor. It was not like, it was an affluent neighborhood. So even that, she brought that back, put it in a small little cloth bag, tied it up, and put it in his pocket. And so then Sudama went about. He was so excited. He was elated. You wouldn't see a sign of, oh, I'm depressed. Oh, I don't have this and I don't have that. There was no complaint coming from him in that respect. But instead, he was looking forward eagerly, so eagerly and happily, that he was even willing to leave his family at that point in time to go see Krishna, right? So he's stepping out of his house, out of his village, not expecting any outcomes, not with any expectation other than the fact that he was going to go see Krishna, knowing that his family was on the brink of being without food, of starvation. It is so heart-wrenching, even when you look at, or think about the situation that he's in, going through so much in life with his family. And it's come down to a point where it is so difficult for him to even put anything on the table. I mean, not that they had a table, they probably sat on the floor. So they didn't have anything to put on the floor to even eat for, 1 square meal. And here he is excitedly heading towards Krishna with so much eagerness. And as he goes and he's walking towards Dwaraka, he has to get through, a forest. And as he's going through this forest, he's reminiscing, he's constantly thinking about Krishna. And he's reminded of the time when, Sandipani Muni sends Krishna and Sudama into the forest to gather some firewood. And as they're gathering the firewood, they're enjoying the skies are beautiful, the sun is out, the birds are chirping, the flowers are blossoming. Krishna and Sudama are playing with each other. They're picking up the firewood. They pick up a whole bunch, and Krishna and they're imitating the animals, in the forest, like the monkeys. So Krishna is hanging from one branch and swinging to the other branch, and Sudama is laughing, and they're having such fun. They're having such loving exchanges, and all of a sudden, the wind starts to blow, and it gets more and more intense. The leaves are flying all over the place, twigs, and the birds are fluttering and flying, and, trying to get to safety. The whole atmosphere changes, the clouds are becoming dark, the sun is no longer to be seen. And sure enough, it starts to rain, and the rain gets worse. It becomes a severe storm, and little Krishna and Sudama are now scared. They're taken aback by this sudden change in weather, and the weather has become so intense. It's not just a rain, right? It is a thunderstorm that is severe. And so Krishna and Sudama hold hands together, and it becomes dark. They're not able to see where they're going. The paths that they normally took to get into the forest and get back to the ashram now were covered in water. So they couldn't even see the path. And so they tried this way for a little bit and it didn't look familiar. So then Krishna said, maybe we should try that way. And so they went that way. And even that didn't look familiar. And pretty soon they were lost. And it was dark. So what did they do? They found a small little place, in the forest where, under a set of bushes where they could at least take some shelter from the rain and the severe storm. Meanwhile, Sandipani Muni and his wife, they're so worried about what happened. Where are these two children? Where are our students? We have responsibility for them. And most importantly, where is Krishna? Because there's the attraction even for Sandipani Muni and his wife. Krishna was their favorite. And so they worried about the two of them and they, organize a search party and they're looking in the dark. They get into the forest, looking everywhere, and they're not able to find anybody, and find any of these two who were taking shelter in a closed enclave of shrubs and some flowers. And even there, Krishna and Sudama are reminiscing between being frightened and thinking about, the wonderful times that they were having, together in the forest, in the ashram, and as friends. And in the morning, when daylight appears, the search party finally finds Krishna and Sudama fast asleep, close to each other in this tiny little shelter. And so then, they're able to. So they're thinking about, so Sudama is reminiscing all of these things and he's thinking, oh my gosh, we had such wonderful times together. We had such wonderful, loving exchanges there as dear friends. And we even got through the severe storm and then we were, back in the ashram, safe. And now, he's making his way towards Dwaraka as he's thinking through all of this. And as he's getting through that, he's also entering this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful city of Dwaraka. And, he actually takes a ferry. He has a boatman who offers to take him across the waters and he gets to this sea city, Dwaraka. So Dwaraka was erected on this piece of land that was facing the sea, right on the west coast of India. And when he entered the city, it was like completely mind-boggling to a point where he was looking at a city with so many glittering palaces, with beautiful lakes and beautiful flowers and trees. People were, dressed so beautifully. They seemed to be so blissful. I mean, he felt like he was in Vaikuntha. He, got into the city and he was walking from one palace to the other palace, and each palace that he was coming to seemed to be better than the previous one. It was more opulent, it was more, beautiful, and the whole atmosphere was so blissful. He felt that he was completely liberated. And even better was that these palaces, as opulent as they were, and there were several guards and things like that, but none of them even stopped Sudama. It was like, they were literally welcoming him and opening the doors. And so he was walking again. He was like, really? Is this really happening to me? And he's looking around and he was completely awestruck. He was like, where am I? And then as he kept going from palace to palace to palace and, through all these beautiful places around the palace, and each of these palaces was, like I said, it was completely surrounded with beautiful gardens and lakes and beautiful birds. And, those lakes were not just ordinary lakes. They were like crystal clear with lotuses and, lovely flowers, very fragrant flowers. And then he finds himself in the palace on the, on the periphery of the palace of Rukmini Devi herself. So that palace looked the most beautiful. I mean, it looked like, oh my goodness, I haven't seen anything like this. And by now he's already crossed several palaces before he got there. And so he inquires, from the door, the gatekeepers there, as to whose palace is it? It's so beautiful. And they say it is the palace of the king and the queen. This is where Rukmini Devi and Lord Krishna live. And so excitedly, he's making his way up these marble steps. But even as he's taking a few steps, just as he's getting maybe to the third or fourth step, Krishna is coming running down. He sees Krishna running down the stairs with outstretched arms, and he's coming towards him, with literally tears in his eyes. And he's coming with this smile on his face. And he comes straight to Sudama and embraces him, hugs him, and then he leads him up the stairs personally, takes him into his palace, takes him into his personal chambers, seats Sudama on his own personal bed, and then he even washes his tired feet. Krishna washes Sudama's tired feet, gets all the dirt and dust. And Sudama is thinking all along, oh my goodness, this is not happening. I am so embarrassed. I am so dirty, and I'm going to be spoiling the bed that Krishna sleeps in. It's going to get soiled. It's going to get dirty. Look at me. My clothes are so dirty. My feet are filled with dust and mud and everything. I'm completely ruining this beautiful, clean place of Krishna. How could I even do that? Krishna is the emperor. He is the king. He is the king of all of Dwaraka. That's what's running through his mind. So the scene is such, and not just Krishna, even Rukmini Devi is standing by with a chamra in her hand, and she's gently fanning Sudama, and Krishna is offering these beautiful words, and then together they're offering, fruits and food, and Krishna is inquiring about how Sudama is, and please tell me more about, how your life has been, where have you been, what are you doing, do you have a family? And it's not like Krishna doesn't know. After all, Krishna is Sarvabhuta Manobhignya, right? He knows, he's in everybody's heart. So he knows everything about everybody and everything. But nevertheless, he's genuinely asking if this is not, some kind of facade that Krishna is putting. But instead, he's asking Sudama, his dear friend, he's inquiring with so much eagerness and so much sincerity. Oh, Sudama, my dear friend, where have you been? I've missed you. And here Sudama is saying, my dear master, please do not make me ashamed. Even if you ask me repeatedly, I'm not going to tell you about my poverty-stricken life, about, the lack of any material resources, not even food, not even, 3 square meals a day for me or my children, my family. And then Krishna quickly says, okay, so what have you brought me? What have you brought me? Have you brought me a gift? You're seeing me after so many years. My dear Sudama, have you brought me a gift? And Sudama is thinking, please, 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 don't ask me that question. He knows that his wife has given him a bag of chipped rice, but even that chipped rice, he's so embarrassed. He's like, how can I give such an opulent personality chipped rice? How can I do that? Nobody should be doing that. And least of all me, I've been his friend. How can I give him something that is so disgustingly, fallen? Chipped rice. And even that chipped rice, and now before he could do anything, Krishna just reaches out into his pocket and grabs this tiny little sack. And guess what? Even those 4 palmfuls that his wife had collected, Sudama's wife had collected to give as a gift to Krishna, that chipped rice actually fell through some of the holes, because even the bag that she put it in, even the bag had tatters in it. It had holes in it. So during this long journey, half of it was gone. So there was only little left. In fact, it was down to just a few chips of rice. And Krishna just grabs one of those, puts it in his mouth, and he experiences sincere bliss. I mean, he goes ecstatic. So Sudama is cringing in the meantime, right? He's like, oh my God, what is he doing? And there are, attendants around them in the chambers of Krishna and Rukmini, and they're all shocked. He's like, who is this? This Brahmana is in tatters. Why is Krishna giving all this attention? What is so special? And it is said that Krishna experienced so much ecstasy, and Rukmini Devi is watching Krishna experience, and she knows her husband. She knows that this is sincere. This is something that is coming from his heart. It's not something that he's trying to put on superficially. He is truly experiencing ecstasy, even from that one single chip of rice or one single morsel of that chipped rice. And it is said that Rukmini Devi, she is the goddess of fortune. She is obliged to personally go to the home of the devotees that offer Krishna sumptuous food. So for devotees, it is a good takeaway for all of us. When we offer food to Krishna, and when Krishna is accepting it, and he accepts it, as you know, he will accept anything. Patram pushpam phalam toyam, right? He will accept anything as long as it is offered with love. It has to be with love and devotion. When we do it with an open heart, and we do it with that sense of sincerity and eagerness to serve Krishna, and Krishna loves that. He loves that. He is not looking at, oh, did you make me malai kofta, or did you make me gulab jamuns, or did you just give me, even simple rice? But if you're giving it with love, he accepts it. And Rukmini Devi feels obliged. She feels like, oh, my dear Krishna, my dear husband has, taken something from you. So we have to give something back to you. So she reciprocates. And she reciprocates by making that devotee's home opulent. Now, opulence comes in many ways, right? It's not just money. It comes in many ways. It comes with more devotion service, more love for Krishna. And so it's a loving exchange. So this is a good lesson, a good takeaway for me, for myself personally as well, that, we should inculcate that feeling of openness within our hearts to give. And when we're giving it to Krishna, only with the only objective that, to please Krishna, not expecting anything back in return, but without any expectation, but with the only objective of pleasing Krishna, it makes all the difference. The intent should be, Krishna should be pleased. Krishna should enjoy this. I hope Krishna will accept this. And Krishna, please accept this. And if you enjoy it, I've achieved perfection. So in this verse, Krishna is exhibiting such sublime symptoms of ecstasy just by the touch of his dear friend, right? So the verse is saying, Krishna was completely touched just by touching his friend. He was experiencing these wonderful symptoms of ecstasy, to a point that tears started flowing from his eyes, his lotus-like eyes. Pushkara ikshana. It's so touching, I tell you. That is why, our acharyas say that more than attempting to see Krishna, serve Krishna in such a way that he gets to see you. So let me repeat that again. So we need to serve Krishna by serving his devotees, because when we serve his devotees, it pleases Krishna the most. And that's a sure way for us to be able to grab Krishna's attention. right? So we need to serve Krishna in such a way that Krishna gets to see us, as opposed to we trying to see Krishna. Oh, why am I not seeing Krishna? Oh, I'm looking at Krishna this way and that way, and all these thoughts go through our head. Even when we're in the temple, we're outside the temple, we're doing our daily thing. We're not really applying ourselves the way we really should. What our acharyas are telling us is that serve Krishna in such a way that Krishna gets to see you, as opposed to you trying to, doing all your things, jumping up and down, trying to see Krishna. And what can make that happen? It's not the externalities. It is not how much we give. It's not material opulences, the gifts. I mean, you will see people do give a lot of opulent gifts. And I'm not saying that is the wrong thing to do. I'm just saying that Krishna doesn't require any of that. He's an Atmaram. He's completely satisfied in himself. He does not need any of that. After all, whatever we have is coming from him. And like my Guru Maharaj would say, we all have to give up, not giving up material things, but giving up the notion that these things are ours to give up in the first place. No, because they're all what we have is given to us by Krishna. It's just that because of our super misconception of this whole bodily concept, we're not able to think that this is not ours and coming from Krishna. Instead, we're thinking this is mine, that is mine, this whole thing, everything that I have is mine. This is what I've earned. This is what I've inherited or I've earned, as my birthright. But in fact, it's just a notion that we need to give up. And Krishna is pleased when we give it with love, when we offer up anything, whatever little that we have. And obviously, Krishna is super opulent. It's one of his opulences is super opulent. There's nothing more opulent than, the opulences that he has, right? He already has everything. But even the tiniest of things that we can give, and we give with love. And that's all it takes. And that's all Krishna is asking for. And that's all Krishna is seeing in Sudama's eyes when Sudama is embarrassed about giving the chipped rice. And so Krishna, like I said, he is the knower of every single heart. So he knows the embarrassment that Sudama is going through. And when he takes that single morsel which is brought to him with so much love and devotion, he relishes that, and he's in total ecstasy, he's in total bliss. And tears of love are flowing from Krishna's eyes. So fast forward, Krishna and Sudama spend the evening together. Krishna invites him to stay over for the night, and he stays there, and they're still talking about all the fun exchanges, the fun pastimes they've had even growing up as boys. Even then, Sudama doesn't tell him about his, family's, poverty-stricken life that he's experiencing, and why he was there, in the first place to see Krishna. It was not for asking or anything like that. But Krishna knows. He knows Sudama's situation. Instead, Sudama was talking about, do you remember our teacher's wife? He's changing the conversation to get away from his own personal life and talking about the pastimes instead, having spent that with Krishna as a young boy. And Krishna says, of course, teacher's wife, she was such a good cook. She made such great sweets. And I ate so many of those sweets. I never felt like I had enough. I kept eating and eating and eating. She was so sweet, and she made such wonderful sweets. And they laughed together. And so they were just discussing all of these wonderful pastimes that they had together in the ashram, like two good friends, old friends getting back together. And in the morning, Sudama bid goodbye, and he was on his way back. And Krishna and Rukmini Devi, they waved goodbye to him. They stood by the door. It's not like, okay, I'm sitting in my living room. See you. Bye-bye. It was good seeing you. No, Krishna and Rukmini Devi were standing by the door. The doors of the palace. I mean, coming all the way to the doors of the palace from where the inner chambers are, it's quite a walk. It's quite a distance. Krishna and Rukmini could have said, okay, it was good seeing you. Now we've got to move on with our lives. Okay, bye. See you soon, Sudama. No, they didn't do that, but they actually escorted Sudama all the way to the door. And from the door, they stood till Sudama disappeared from sight. And Sudama was completely embarrassed. Now that's Vaishnava etiquette. That's Vaishnava etiquette. He looks, Krishna and Rukmini Devi seeing Sudama off personally at the door. And Sudama thinking to himself all along, oh my God, Krishna is such a great person. He is a great person. He's still looking at Krishna as his very dear friend. He's like, he is so opulent. He's such a great person. He didn't have to do any of this, yet he treated me so well. I'm just an ordinary, simple Brahmana, completely poor and poverty stricken. But in spite of that, he took such good care of me. He washed my feet. He seated me on his own bed. He fed me with his own hands. He hugged me and he cried tears of love. He could see those emotions that were so genuine and so sincere. And so Sudama was like completely squished and squashed in his heart. He was completely emotional. He was at the same time extremely happy that he was able to see his dear friend Krishna. And so he's walking back and he's now made it all the way through the forest and back home. And there his village, it's gone. He's saying, oh my God, did I come to the wrong place? What happened? And there in that poor old village, in that place, stood beautiful palaces, again with beautiful lakes and trees and flowers. People were all looking so well dressed with jewels, and they were looking happy and blissful, and they were all coming towards him to welcome him. And then from behind, his wife comes running through the crowds, and she's with outstretched arms, and she's like, welcome back, Sudama. Look what Krishna has done for us. He's built this beautiful palace. He's given us this beautiful home. Look at our children. And then Sudama is completely, taken aback. He's like, oh my God, Krishna can do anything. And Krishna had told him, remember, Sudama, I know you don't want anything, from a material perspective, but if you're ever offered anything in terms of material wealth, do not refuse, accept them, and instead use that to help the other poor folks around you, to help the poor. So Sudama tells his family that. He says, look, let's not get proud now that we have all this wealth, but instead, let's use it properly so that we can help others and get them off their, poor conditions. Now, just switching gears a little bit, I know we're running out of time. In fact, we are over time, but I'm going to take a few more minutes. I'm going to take the liberty. Today is a Sunday, and I'm sure you can give me a little more of your time, please, if I may request you. So here's what also comes to my mind, just thinking about what Srila Prabhupada has gone through, in looking at something more contemporary, right? Sudama and Krishna had those wonderful pastimes. And then talking about our current times in the recent 50, 60, 70 years, right? Let's look at, a few aspects of Srila Prabhupada's hardships that he faced after coming to the US on the instructions of his spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And so even before founding ISKCON in 1966, Srila Prabhupada recorded himself singing the prayers of Srimati Kunti Devi. Right? And he did this on a small little audio device that was given to him in the office of West 72nd Street of New York City. Okay, after he came from Butler, Pennsylvania. And this was in the winter of 1965. Okay, just before he formed ISKCON, and the first ISKCON center, the ISKCON temple, was actually, put in place. And these were very, very difficult times for Srila Prabhupada. He didn't have any resources, as we all know. And in the small place where he was given accommodations, there was no kitchen. So he couldn't cook for himself, right? And there was, leave alone kitchen, there was no shower even. So he would, and this is the winter of, this was in the brink of the winter in 1965, where, he was living in New York City and he had to walk 7 blocks. And, New York City does get cold. And you're talking about downtown New York City, where the wind is rushing through the skyscrapers, the buildings. And Prabhupada had to walk every morning just to have a shower. He would walk 7 blocks facing this howling wind blowing in his face. And it's not like he had heavy, clothing either. It was simple sannyasi cotton that he would wear, on a daily basis with a shawl around him and with whatever he was given for footwear, and some gloves. And that's it. He would walk 7 blocks each way just to have a shower and then come back, because he was, this facility was available to him only at Mr. Mishra's studio apartment at that time. But instead, he was inspired to meditate very deeply on Kunti Devi's prayers during this period. And this, like I said, this was a period of hardship and trial, right? So it seemed to give him so much relief, and it inspired him to move on. And even then, right, he was, once he opened ISKCON's very first temple on 22nd Avenue, most of you, would have seen it. It's a very humble beginning for Srila Prabhupada, for ISKCON, for all of us. And it is, the starting, it's the genesis from where, all the other temples throughout the world have begun. But even there, it was not like that his work had become less. His work had actually doubled, tripled, quadrupled, quintupled. It just grew so much because he was doing so much preaching, and he was trying to, shed light of the Vedas, right, of the scriptures, of the Srimad Bhagavatam, of the Bhagavad Gita, on new devotees, right? He was bringing in new people to get an appreciation for all of this. And so in the bargain, he was serving them. He was not only preaching, but he was cooking for them, and he was serving them instead of them serving him, right? Because they were still new and they were still trying to understand this whole aspect of what does it mean in terms of devotional service? What does it mean in terms of serving, the spiritual master? So these were very, very early stages, and they were taking, embarrassingly, they were taking services from him. And even a person at my age, okay, and I'm getting older, and I'm older than most of you here in the congregation, but even at my age, I would be completely drained at the end of even day one. And here Srila Prabhupada at his age, day after day after day after day, living in a foreign place with very, very limited resources, he was doing all of this. And he was doing this not complaining, not with, this is not working, that is not working, this is not right, that should have been done better, this could have been better. I mean, we're constantly caught up. Look at us, right? We moved from humble beginnings, starting out with just a few of us in Premananda Mataji's house on Friday evenings. In fact, even before that, at Preeti, who is now Preeti Lakshana, and Ananga Mohan Prabhu's house on Friday evenings. We were just a few of us. From there, we moved into, Oswego as we grew, and Oswego, we outgrew Oswego, which was a home, a house by itself. And that too we outgrew. And then we purchased the new property. We moved into the temple, which was a church. And then we outgrew that over the period of time. And now we have this brand new, beautiful temple that we have. But look at us. We're still so caught up on things that are not right. or are not to our expectations. So we're still so caught up on that in terms of thinking collectively, this is our home. This is where we are serving our dear Lordship Sri Sri Radha Shyam Sundar. And it was not an easy journey, even for Sri Sri Radha Shyam Sundar to appear and manifest where they are today. It's been a long journey. Not many of you know what all has happened. It was not an easy journey. And it's taken a lot for the Lordships to appear here to manifest. And thanks to all the wonderful devotees, starting with His Holiness Srila Mopad Swami, who made this happen. So we need to get ourselves out of this mode of complaining and saying, okay, this is not right, that is not working, this is broken. I'm guilty as well. So I'm not only, bringing this up, but this is a lesson for me as well. This is a personal reflection as well. We need to just pull ourselves out of this. We need to, because it is we're getting to a point where we are actually we're missing the point here, right? In terms of service to the Lordships. Instead, we're so caught up in dwelling on things that are broken, that need to be fixed. Of course, we need to continue to improve and fix things, but we cannot be dwelling on things that are broken. Let's look at solutions. Let's look at how we can serve their Lordships better. I think that is where we need to be putting all our focus. That is where we need to be putting not only our minds, but also our hearts, so that we can actually make a difference. Let's make a difference. And it starts with us. Let's not look at the other person to say, oh, that person should be doing this, or this person should be doing that. Let's start looking at what we can do. And it can be anything. If we can think, let's think. If we can give, let's give. Whether it is time, money, whatever it is, let's share our capabilities to make this a better place to serve the Lordships. We all need to think through this very seriously. We all need to have some self-honesty to think through introspectively and make a difference. Okay, so just right in 1967, Srila Prabhupada, I'm just going back to where I was going down with this. On Memorial Day, Srila Prabhupada had a stroke, and everything was closed because it was a national holiday. And here you had, young devotees, young disciples who were clueless, who didn't know, what to do, where to go, what was happening to Srila Prabhupada. And it was actually a stroke. Later they found out. But at that point in time, Srila Prabhupada was in extreme pain, and he wasn't responding, in a normal way, obviously, because of the condition, the situation that he was in. And so, but he was able to, tell his disciples, I need three things. Please bring a picture of Narasimhadev and place the picture in front of my eyes as I lie down here. And secondly, please, all of you, chant the holy name, the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. He said, please chant continuously. Chant, and chant loudly. And he said the third thing, he asked one of his disciples, please read me the prayers of Srimati Kunti Devi. And we know what happened. After the stroke, he recovered. And later, they even, just fast forward here, later in 1974, there was another episode where Srila Prabhupada was personally supervising the construction of Krishna Balram Mandir in Vrindavan. And this was in 1974. And Janmashtami happened right after that. They celebrated, and Prabhupada even conducted a few initiations. It was just a beautiful, beautiful experience. But then right after that, the following day, they celebrated his appearance day. And, right after that, it was inexplicably, Srila Prabhupada falling sick, and they couldn't figure out what was happening. And he was in pain. He had very high fever. He was extremely weak. They had to lay him down. They called in doctors. The disciples were going, from pillar to post, running just to make sure that Srila Prabhupada was fine. Doctors came in and they couldn't figure out what was wrong. They couldn't diagnose. Then they brought Ayurveda specialists. They brought, people from different medical fields to quickly find out what was going on, diagnose and treat. They couldn't find anything. And again, Srila Prabhupada, his presence of mind, he asked for one of his disciples to read the prayers of Kunti Devi. And when he recovered, his message to his disciples was, see, because you prayed to Krishna, I recovered. And he also said that Queen Kunti's prayers were so important because she offered these prayers when she was going through adversity, and she offered these prayers to Krishna. Now, keep in mind, Prabhupada is not praying for himself or his own personal well-being. Even there, Krishna, even there, Srila Prabhupada was praying to Krishna so that he could continue his services to his spiritual master and to Krishna. That is Krishna consciousness. That is selflessness. So Prabhupada's advice to all of us was, never forget Krishna, especially when we're going through adversities. We shouldn't think, okay, I'm caught up in this moment, but instead remember Krishna. And being able to hear, or read the prayers of Kunti Devi is very, very, very important. It was very important to Srila Prabhupada. So this is, he's living by example, and he's giving us that example for us to follow as well. Okay. Now, normally in most cultures and religions, prayers are offered to receive personal benefit. Personal benefit. I want this, I want that, I want a better job, whatever it is. But in Vaishnava tradition, devotees offer prayers to glorify the Lord instead. Not just glorify the Lord, but also to ask for services, to be able to serve the Lord, to be given that opportunity to serve the Lord. Right? When Lord Brahma and Lakshmi Devi even were afraid to go anywhere close to Nrsimhadev to pacify him, because he was in such an ugraha state. He was in a very, very intense state right after the killing of Hiranyakashipu. Lord Brahma requested this little boy, Prahlad Maharaj, go offer prayers to Nrsimhadev. Now, Prahlad Maharaj, put yourself in his shoes at that particular point in time, right? He is the son of Hiranyakashipu. He just saw his father being completely ripped to pieces by Lord Nrsimhadev. And Lord Nrsimhadev was not in his, normal Krishna's form. Instead, he was in an Ugra form. He was in a, completely different form that was so intense and so scary, even for normal people. It is extremely graphic and extremely violent and extremely scary to deal with. So you have a little boy, Prahlad Maharaj, who's seeing his father being killed and ripped to pieces by Krishna, who's come in the form of Lord Nrsimhadev, a very, very fierce form. And here comes Lord Brahma asking him to go and pacify him in this state, pacify Nrsimhadev in that Ugraha state. Can you imagine? And what does Lord Nrsimhadev do when Prahlad approaches him? He places his hand on his head. And with that, Prahlad Maharaj is able to offer such beautiful prayers, glorifying Nrsimhadev. Right? He's offering prayers not to say, get me out of this situation, get me out of here. I'm too scared at this point. Mummy, where are you? No, that's not what Prahlad Maharaj is praying for. Prahlad Maharaj instead is offering glorifying prayers of glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So let me bring this to a close here. So there are many, 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 many inconceivable pastimes where the devotees of Krishna are attacked by demons. Not only by demons, but even the king of heavens, right? Like Indra. Now that pastime is coming up as well, right? Totally inconceivable. The Gopas are even kidnapped by the secondary creator, the Lord of this universe, Lord Brahma himself. Not for a moment, but for an entire year. But in all these instances, and these pastimes go on and on and on and on, infinite number of pastimes. But in all of these pastimes, there's one thing. The devotees are completely surrendered to Krishna. Completely surrendered to Krishna. And that is what is important. And therefore, they were protected by Krishna. So even in this complete adversity, Sudama, that Sudama and his family were experiencing, they were constantly surrendered to Krishna. He was completely, they were constantly remembering Krishna. And therefore, once you have the shelter of Krishna, everything is there in that shelter of Krishna. All the protection that we need is there in that shelter of Krishna. And therefore, Sudama was completely taken care of. He didn't even have to ask, please give me a little more money. Please help me put another meal on the floor. Oh, Krishna. But Krishna took care of everything. So those feelings of genuine affection between Sudama and Krishna is something that touches my heart. It literally stirs my heart and has always been. That particular pastime is so close to me, so sweet to me, that I thought I'd share that with you. And I apologize for going severely over time here, but I just wanted to share that with you. And thank you again for giving me your time. We'll see you here at the Sunday feast. Krishna is the supreme Paradukha Dukhi, so he is the Karuna Sindhu. He is the ultimate. He is the ultimate Dinabandhu. He is so compassionate. He is always there for us. We just have to remember Krishna. Just remember Krishna. That's all we need to do, and beg for the opportunity to serve him in whatever capacity that we can. And by doing so, Krishna will give us the knowledge by which we can come closer to him and achieve perfection in our lives. With that, I'd like to conclude. Hare Krishna. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Hare Krishna. If there are any questions, if people are still on the call, I'm not sure if you're still there. If you're on the call, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask this question. Maybe we can have a little discussion and we can stop for the day. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Guru Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada. It is so wonderful hearing from you. There has been a break, I think, because of India visit and all that. It's so wonderful. And thank you for really painting a picture from Srimad Bhagavatam. The meeting of these two friends. That's so great. And connecting with the incidents of Srila Prabhupada's life, I always remember this thing, that he has to walk so much distance to take a shower and then prepare breakfast, and how he was cooking himself and serving for all these newcomer devotees himself. And amazing. You have connected with all that and our own Nepal experience. I was so glad, because I've been there always, in that journey together with you. And I remember being in your Bhagavad Gita class in Oswego. Thank you, bringing back all those memories. It was so wonderful. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much for being there for us, guiding us. being so, source of inspiration for us.
Hare Krishna.
Be there together and having those wonderful, loving exchanges that we've had, being a part of the Friday evenings with Rampad Maharaj coming all the way from the temple, as well as Chandamani Maharaj and everybody.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
wonderful just being there together. So thank you.
Yes.
So much.
Hare Krishna.
Any other questions or comments?
No, thank you so much, Prabhu. It was very nice. I mean, the sweetness is in the details. I mean, the way he explained the Sudama pastime is so sweet. I mean, the nice way and how you connected with, I mean, as Sanjay Mati was telling. It was so sweet. I mean, yeah, you were just taking us to that part of the pastimes. You were just visualizing it. It was so nice. Thinking
Thank you.
everywhere in his village and when he went to Krishna's palace. Yeah, it was so sweet. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Hare Krishna. Anybody else? Anything?
Haribol Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. This is Vamsidhari Das Prabhu, of the official Prabhupada.
Prabhu. All glories to God.
I have good news and maybe not very good news also.
Oh. Now I'm scared. Now I'm really worried.
I was thinking how if Prabhu is able to picture it like in a painting, he's doing it one by one like that. So nice absorption, and it must have been so much ecstatic. If I have any luck, I really want to ask him, what must be the experience going through it like that. Maybe if you have anything, please add it, Prabhu.
Prabhu,
And
I'm embarrassed to answer that question, to respond to that, even if I can respond, but I'm embarrassed. Coming from you, I mean, you're experiencing it every day, Prabhu. I experienced it only briefly, it's a glimpse here and a fleeting glimpse there. So please, I feel very embarrassed to even tell you what that experience is like. But please.
With your blessings, may it happen for me. I mean, may I be open to, have the fullness of your blessings, bro. And the second one is about the complaints. It is a little bit not, it's not like triggering like a positive thing in my system. Maybe earlier there was a system of putting a complaint box, and recently I don't know the details, but I think there was a drive to put in a Google form, something like that. What are the things like that? I believe that kind of openness should be facilitated, and after having that one, the leaders need not be slaves to to fulfill everyone's desires, but they do give some indication of something that is not functional. Like in empathy communication seminar, Bir Krishna Maharaj nicely puts in that. I don't know if it's there in the book, but he nicely puts it in the seminar that when a brake light comes, when the service light comes in the car, it doesn't indicate that the car is bad or something else is bad. It's just indicating some kind of misfunction or something is missing, like that. We just need to do the oil change, or maybe we just need to fix the brakes or something like that. So I'm thinking those kind of inputs, allowing people to pour their heart, it really helps them free and focus on Krishna. And on the leadership also, I always like the 80-20 rule, that's been practiced in the corporate world. There is only 20% problem that is all operating everywhere. That way, like, we can have a mutual service oriented journey towards Krishna. Like that, I was thinking, you didn't mean it, but I'm also seeing other places that the promotion has been going on, like, if you give a suggestion or something like that, people ask, okay, are you going to take it up? Are you going to do it like that? you know, um, I know, like, the leaders are really, like, burned up with a lot of response. They're already doing awesome service. Um, or, but I kind of see that, like, there's that way the gap will increase between both the parties, the followers and the leaders. The followers think, okay, yeah, we're not considered, or yeah, like the children, how the children feel, this the parents are always bossy like that. And but like, if the children are heard, even if you don't do it also, they're like, they really get their vital energy out and they push it. So I thought, because you're our guiding person, I thought I will bring this up, Prabhu. And much thank you for really listening.
Super valid, Prabhu. I mean, your question, your concern is, noted, very valid. And again, my strong belief is that none of us are, leaders or followers. We're all having a role to play. I'm talking from an operational perspective. As far
Yeah.
as right, we all have a role to play, and we all have a responsibility. And the way I look at it is, this is an opportunity for us to serve. So
Mm.
none of us are perfect. I speak for myself. I have so much to improve on. There are so many faults, right? But I shouldn't be getting defensive. Instead, I should have an open heart for me to openly listen, hear, and see if there is something I can do to help make the situation different and better and improve myself in the bargain. And if I'm not able to, I take guidance or I take the help of other devotees for the journey to improve. That it would be my approach to handle something like this. And we know that Krishna has given us this wonderful temple, the wonderful opportunity for us to serve together. We need to also work together to solve problems, right? I mean, when I say problems, these are challenges. They're not really problems, they're challenges. See,
Yeah, because like at the end of the day, like in nothing, it cannot be, fixed. Everything cannot be fixed.
exactly,
It's the
exactly.
relationship that keeps it together.
It's the compassion, the relationship, working together. Exactly. The association is what is going to help us
So
become.
yeah, so that's what I was thinking. Like, we should not close that relationship. I'm kind of getting sense from other places that, as I gave an example, like, you go and tell something, and then immediately I was asked, like, you want to do this service? It was like many years back. So, I mean, maybe there should have dialogue. I really overloaded. Maybe like you have some other suggestion, or like maybe let's put it, or maybe like something like that. You know, but if the communication is broken, okay, I cannot tell anything, and the leader also feels like they are, no matter how much I do, like there is no appreciation, no encouragement for me,
Correct.
because kids are kids at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So
Right. To draw the line at some point is what. Yeah. So you have to look at both perspectives. You're completely right. Very true. So
yeah.
one is we need to do, a checkpoint, because now it's almost 6 months since we've moved into the temple. We are no longer a small outfit, right? We are a congregation that needs a lot of processes, a lot of thinking, a lot of strategy to think together and operationalize that. So we need a checkpoint. We basically need to take stock of, okay, here are things that have worked, here are things that have not worked, and we need to improve on. That one checkpoint we need to do right as soon as possible. But then on an ongoing basis, like you mentioned, there has to be a mechanism to be able to, collect and capture, I won't say glimpses, but at least suggestions for improvement. They're going to be improvement continuously.
Let them say whatever they want to say, and we don't need to even see them if you don't have energy. And if we see them, if we have energy, we can see them, and then show them this service back to you.
I agree, Prabhu. We should, I wouldn't say see them, but we should hear them. We may not act on them right away because there's going to be a whole laundry list of.
Because the reason is how much, anyway, everybody, as you're telling, everybody have their own responsibility as they have their, everybody's trying. So, but no, closing it is, I'm not finding it as
Acceptable, Prabhu. You're right. It's
culture. Yeah.
And what I would also suggest is, see, when you take it on yourself alone, burden is going to be very, very heavy. But if I take that with a whole bunch of us, right, collectively, all of us are sharing that burden, then it becomes very light. We can, there's resolve.
That's one thing I'm also remembering now. Like, we hear the saying that a mind can make the mole a mountain. So at the end of the day, the gaps are pretty small. Like, it's like a mole. And, if it is not out, then.
So we'll work towards that. Obviously, this is something that we need to discuss with our leadership as well, and bring to bear that this is actually now the most important thing that we need to look at. More than the operational things which we can solve, we need to first figure this out. How do we keep these channels open? And how do we respond? How do we, not react, but how do we respond? The reactions will always be there. As you know, that's not the right thing to do. We need to respond. How do we respond appropriately?
Yeah.
But thank you for bringing it.
Thank you for allowing me to bring it out, because I really want to go back and appreciate that 1 hour and plus narration of this wonderful details of the past time. It's just like what do we say? Forgetting ourselves. Like, I don't know what word we say for that. Like, we just transported to a different place, forget where we are sitting. And the absorption, and it was inspiring to follow, and so on.
For that, I'm grateful to you, and for everyone who's attended this and joined the discussion. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Thank you. Please continue to inspire us with all the wonderful services you're doing. Thank you.